Hey YouTube, this is Zach with Achilles Financial, and we are back with another video where we are going to be reviewing the economic indicators that are coming out this week, as well as we're going to talk a little bit about some of the earnings that are occurring this week, as well as lastly, I do want to talk about some of the trades that I have made, as well as what trades I am looking to make for this week. So if I get around to it, you will see that be outlined here in the video below in the comments using some of those timestamps. And if not, then it's going to be pretty much in that order. So to start with, I do want to go ahead and highlight some of the trades that I made this past week. And again, really what I'm going to be highlighting is the ones I made on Friday. So as you can see, I've got NVIDIA on the screen. I talk about them all the time. I did make a trade on early Friday morning, and that trade was right at 9:30. I was going off of a call. I did a 500 call option. And I sold on, I think it was this uptick right here. So I missed out on some pretty big profits, but let me show you the results of that trade now. So you can see what I did here, where on Friday I did sell the NVIDIA call that I purchased that morning. That was a $500 call that I purchased for $96, and then I sold that for $210. So again, with the 65-cent payment right there. So walked away from that one with about 120% return. Very happy with that. I do want to highlight that I did see that this trade right here was going at a high point of as much as, instead of 2.1, it was actually $12. So that would have been $1,200. So I sold out a little early, but it happens. Also, what I have made a trade so far is I did buy the TSM call, and right now I'm sitting about $15 up on that one, but we'll see how that one behaves this week. That is an $80 call for the end of this week. So again, we'll kind of get more into the theory behind that and the idea behind that here shortly, but that's just my thought process so far in the trades that I have made. So let's talk about the economic indicators for this week. So as you can see here, I am on MarketWatch looking at their economic indicators. I've been switching between this and TD Ameritrade's capabilities. One thing that I'd also highlight is I talk about NVIDIA so much that even the advertisements are over here on the right hand side of my screen are based on NVIDIA. So I just find that funny, but it's just cool to see that happening. So just from everything that you see here on the screen, if I go down a little bit, again, I'm going to highlight the ones that I think are actually going to move the market. The first thing here, the Chicago Fed National Activity Index, you'll see this on CNBC. I personally have never seen the market actually move positive or negatively based off this information. However, people will say this is good or bad. So there's definitely going to be opinions on it. However, it's not necessarily a market mover. One thing that I do think is beneficial is on Tuesday, we are going to see the Case-Shiller National Home Price Index. This is normally known as just HPI, and we'll see that come out on Tuesday. I can't imagine that it's gone down at all. We've seen very good home sales lately, and I would highlight that there's not a lot that's being put up for sale right now because we haven't seen a decrease in home prices right now. What we are seeing right now is a lot of the more wealthy individuals in a number of cities are actually buying properties outside of the city and not selling their properties within the cities. That trend may change later on this year, but we'll see what happens there. But this is something that I think will be good. As always, whenever we're talking about new home sales as well as the HPI, I am going to be watching Zillow, Redfin, LGI, DHI, some of the home builders and some of the groups that actually go out and help sell homes. I'm going to be watching that. However, I don't know if it's something that if it's going to come out good or as a surprise, then if it's actually going to cause those stocks to really bump off of that. And consumer confidence index is the same as the Chicago Fed. People like to look at it, talk about it, but it really doesn't move the market. Same with durable goods and capital goods. However, on Thursday, we had some interesting moves on the jobless claims and the continuing jobless claims from last week. And that was that the initial jobless claims actually went up and were higher from expected. However, they were still relatively close, so that's why we didn't see anything too terrible associated with it. But I do think that if we see that trend continue where these values start going up, although the continuous claims kept going down, I do think that if we start seeing that go up, that could spell pretty bad for our essentially our week to week growth. And so I'm going to be watching that in particular. I may trim any options that I have going into that just to be aware and kind of just be watching that. The other thing that I would highlight is that GDP revision. It's going to be bad no matter what. So I think that the estimate is going to kind of be spot on, but it's going to be bad and everyone knows that's going to be bad. This is a backwards looking approach, so I'm still not too worried about that. Pending home sales is the same as the above. So everything on the Friday list, I am not really too worried about or really going to be paying attention to. The core inflation is important, but I would highlight that the inflation really isn't going to be a problem right now. Everyone's talking about the potential for deflation, and that's because the government considers the idea behind inflation to be the price of goods going up. But really what we need to look at is the fact that there's a lot more money out in the markets right now, and that is because the Fed has just been pumping that money in there. So if that's the case, then that's really what we need to be looking at, not necessarily the fact that people are, or rather the cost of goods has gone up. So that is what we're looking at for the economic indicators. Nothing too crazy this week. Again, the unemployment rate is the real one that we'd like to see move the market, and we're not going to see that until next week. However, what we are going to see this week is those jobless claims, and that is a huge impact and one we're going to be watching. The other thing that I'm going to be watching this week, as always, is earnings. I don't see anything crazy that I'm going to be watching really for tomorrow. Again, normally the larger companies aren't doing anything on Mondays. However, what I am going to be looking at is Salesforce is doing their announcement on Tuesday. Salesforce, as you can see by the 6-month chart there below, has been absolutely killing it. However, their premiums are relatively expensive and they don't always move a lot off of earnings. So I'm going to be watching that. If anything, I think that their earnings are not going to be as hyped up as we would expect them to be. The other company that I'm going to be watching is Autodesk. And again, you can see that they've basically flatlined up until this week for earnings. So I may be making a plug there. If we just look at the 1 month, again, it's been largely flat, and then they just had this run up right before earnings. So I think there still may be a play there, although that may be one that I am going to be playing, not necessarily at earnings or before earnings, but afterwards in a continuation, kind of like what I did with Nvidia. So that's what I'm going to be watching. Again, nothing that I'm looking at for Wednesday or Thursday with any real excitement, just because there's not really a lot out there that gets me to look at and say, hey, this is going to be a great move for this week. As you can see here for TSM, I'm going to be making that similar play. I am currently up about 18%. This is for them to be at $80. I think that they can do this. This is just the 1 day. If I look at it off the week, this is something that they've been close to 2 weeks ago. And so that's kind of what I'm banking on, is this capability to get back over 80. That's really where I'm going to see that price move. So I think if we go back even a month, I didn't realize it'd been this high, but you can see here that the high for them was $85 a share. And if we saw that, then we've got a lot of advantages here. Again, here's my potential on this stock. So I think that we've got some room to run there. I'd like to see it at $82 a share. So if that happens, we could walk away with some good money. But that's one of the reasons why I made the TSM play, is because, again, as you can see over this month-long chart right here, it's kind of been trading sideways since it made this good run up. And we've seen AMD as well as Nvidia make that run. TSM has a little bit more headwinds just because they've got some supply chain issues right now with some of the issues concerning China and Taiwan, as well as just the entire Asian region going up against the United States. So that's what we're looking at here for TSM. Lastly, I do want to highlight BABA as well, where I think we may see a continuation here. Again, there's a lot of strength here. We're at that breakout point. So what I'm looking to do is look at a trade tomorrow morning before hours to see if we can see or follow up on this breakout right here, because while this was a really big day for them, it's still following up on some of their action earlier this month. So they're at that breakout level, and I think that they can run. So this is one that, again, the options are not too crazy. Again, we're going to see some of this go down, but even like a 270 for the end of the week. If this comes in tomorrow morning at 400, then I may be looking at that from a debit spread perspective. So there's some moves to make. Those are the ones that I am looking at from a option perspective is NVIDIA, TSM, and BABA, as well as what I'm going to be looking at is some post-earnings plays for Autodesk as well as Salesforce. So excited to look at all those. It was a good week last week, and I'm very optimistic on this week. The last play that I will leave you with is Microsoft, and the reason for that is I played them last week and I lost on them. But as you can see, we've already had a run up, and when they mentioned that they are potentially going to be trying to go after cloud contracts with foreign governments since they have helped with the United States. I think the move that they made was for the Jedi deal, which is essentially they're going to be helping helping the United States with cloud services. But this is the week-long chart, or rather the month-long chart for Microsoft. You can see they've been hovering around that 214 level. What I'd really like to see is that 220 mark. Again, I think that they can get there. They can go on a run. They're not a big mover, so it's not super expensive, but this is one that I'm definitely going to be watching and see if I can flip either tomorrow or Tuesday. So we'll see it. We'll see what happens. I'm excited for it. There's a lot of opportunity this week, and it's going to be a fun one. If you have some plays that you would recommend, please drop those in the comments below. And if you found this content helpful, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.